Hello, Jambo, bonjour, ¿cómo estás? Thank you for joining us for yet another episode of the 360-degree brand story, where brands come alive, one brushstroke at a time. This is a bi-weekly conversation about the comprehensive nature of storytelling, and we run it every second and fourth Wednesday of the month. Why should we do this? Why do we have to do this? You may ask. There are so many programs, discussions going on about storytelling. And in the times that we live in, it has become important for you to say your own story and to tell your own story in your own words. Communication makes or breaks. You are a brand, and you need to be treated as a brand. You need to be heard as a brand. Most of us look at storytelling from the point of view that when we were growing up, allow me to use our local language, Kiswahili, which is spoken in half of sub-Saharan Africa. Hadithi, hadithi, hadithi njoo. If I would translate it, it would mean tell your story, we are listening. We are here to break myths, give tips, share practical insights that you can use immediately after the program is done, or even when the program is going on, you can change your narrative and give stories. I mean, it's your space. It's for you to tell the world about your brand, for you to discuss about your brand. So let us work with you as you execute your strategy on storytelling. And we thank you for choosing to spend the next few minutes with us. My name is Joe Mukoko, co-founder, Africa MSME Collective, and head of learning at SME Founders Association. On the hot seat today is Chesubire Greg. She loves telling stories. If you meet her for just a minute, 30 seconds of that minute will be taken up by her giving her ideas or sharing her ideas with a short story. Chesubire, welcome to the hot seat. I know it's not hot, but yeah, welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate the introduction. Where do you want me to start?
You looked up,
I can talk the whole day.
Means you have a story. So go ahead. You have that 1 minute to say the story. There's a narrative that has already come into play.
You're so right. So good morning, good evening, good night. I don't go into many languages like Joe. But thank you so much for joining us. My name is Chesubire Greg. I call myself a storyteller with a difference because we look at stories from a holistic perspective. And these sessions will simply be about unpacking what we commonly know about storytelling and then adding meat. You unpack, you add, you deduct, you refine, you restore, you remove. It's an exciting time in a world where everything rises and falls on the back of a story. So karibuni sana, which means welcome. And let's enjoy this space. We use a lot of colloquial sometimes because sometimes you find, and that's really the heart of storytelling, you find that the language, either your mother tongue or your other local language may resonate. So if we say something you don't understand, please put it in the chat, put in the comment section. We will respond. We promise we will respond. Back to you, Joe.
Oh, thank you, Chesubire. You have said we unpack, we refine, we redefine, we alter.
Yes.
As human beings, we are unique in our own way. We both have gone to same class, same school, and even have been desk mates, but we have different paths. We're studying the same course, but we have different paths. That is where I would like us to begin this conversation today. Why is it important to tell your story?
So let me take context. Do we have any stories about Africa in the 1400s?
Africa in 1400s. I think I read somewhere. Is that when the Chinese came to the coast of Malindi?
Could be. Because if you look at our history, when you go to all these places, you find there was porcelain at the coast, there were cowrie shells, there was evidence that we had been interacting with either the Chinese or the Omanis. There is evidence. However, there is very little written about the history of Africa. The written history of Africa starts around the time of the slave, let's say trade, which included slave trade. It included the buying and selling of coffee, bringing of the porcelain dishes. We got weapons and all that. That's when history started in terms of the written history of Africa. But Africa is the cradle of mankind. I know you know that. Your history has told you that. So if we're the cradle of mankind, this is where life started. Yet there is a blank, a big blank. There's a gaping hole in our history. Yet if you go to Europe, you go to the Americas, you will find their history from the 1400s, you'll find the history from even BC, before Christ. And that is why storytelling is important. History is written by those who have the capacity to document it. History is controlled by the person who tells the first story. So the saying that until the prey learns to tell their story, the story will always be told from the perspective of the hunter. So one of the biggest things or reasons why we must tell stories is we must document our history. So as I mentioned, African history, there's a gap in our written history. And I'm so glad I heard of a project being done by, I believe it's UNESCO, who have been since 1964 working on what they're calling the general history of Africa, which is documenting African history from the African perspective. And it's massive. It should be at the end of it like 13 volumes. Wow. And each volume is about 900 pages. And that's just the effort to right a wrong. So now imagine if we as individuals began to document our stories on platforms that we have control over. So is it writing books? Is it conversations like these? Is it placing our content in different places? Then our children and our children's 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 children will have a history they can say about where they come from. So that's the first reason, to document your history, to document your impact. And I'll give another example. There's a friend of mine who's been in the space of soil restoration for about 15 years. They never wrote anything, but then an international organization got funded to come and look at what they were doing, took the information and published it. So these guys have come in 15 years into the program, but now they are credited as being the first people to talk about this process. Yet it is not their process. It belongs to somebody else. So if we don't write it, somebody will write it. And whoever tells the narrative controls the narrative. So that's why we must do it, number one. Number two, the other reason why we must tell stories across different platforms, in different formats, for different reasons, is that it forces us to reflect. I don't know how many times you've seen a narrative, even in our conversations, and the things we are saying, we are perpetuating other people's stories, which have a lot of half-truths. So then I take what you said, and I take your truth, and I tweak it a little bit, and I adjust it to mine. Many of us don't have the time to sit down and reflect. Intentional storytelling demands that I sit and I think through, what is the intention of this story? Who is the desired audience? What do I want them to take out from it? And what does it mean to me? Right? So it forces you to sit and think. That's why many times when you're told, oh, go and write the story of your brand, hey, it's a headache. Because you have to understand what your brand means, who it means something to, why you're telling the story. So then we end up doing salesy things that don't connect with our audiences, right? And the third reason is just to encourage others to do it. If I'm doing it, and even if I'm struggling, at least I'm doing it. So then, Joe, you will see, you'll be like, Chasubire wrote, maybe I can also try. And then somebody else in your circle says, Joe is doing it, so maybe I can try. A different person in my circle is like, this is so simple. I can write like this. I'm like, write like your voice, you know? So then what it does, as more of us tell the stories, more people are encouraged to tell stories. And there's so many dimensions in which you can really tell a story. But my feel is that it has to come from the heart. There's this word we have spoiled. We have used it so much until we have convoluted it. The word authentic. Many times today, authentic means that if you come at me, I can go at you nastily. Authentic in the storytelling arena that I sit in is about what is the truth of Chesubire. Because the reality is, if I'm mean, I mean. So it will come out in my storytelling. If I'm loving and warm, it will come out. If I'm insecure, you will see it. I may try to hide it and shroud it, but it will come out. So the basic reasons, the three basic reasons in my mind that we must tell stories is one, to document history, two, to force us to reflect, and three, to encourage others to tell stories. Then now we have this really unstoppable machine of telling our stories.
Okay, thank you very much, Subiri, for that. We have to be intentional.
Yes.
If you're not intentional, someone will control our narrative, and we shall not be able to reflect, and we will not encourage, because it is our story to tell.
Yes.
Our seasons to share.
Mm-hmm.
That means, therefore, that storytelling needs to be holistic. You're a proponent of holistic storytelling. What is this holistic storytelling that you talk about that enables us to be authentic and not in the way that, yes, I come at you, you come at me, and the grass suffers? What is holistic storytelling?
Holistic storytelling is a lot more than just authentic storytelling. Authentic will be me in my true voice, talking about my true space and everything. Holistic storytelling means we look at life from all its dimensions. So three things: the good, the bad, and the in-between. Many of us view life from good and bad, right? So good would be the places we win, the things we do well, the enjoyable, happy, nice things. The bad is, I would like to shift that one, maybe use challenging instead of the bad, because those are the things that push us into tight spaces. They make us question everything we know. It is hard times, it's difficult. And then most of life is lived in between those two. So I like to say the good, the bad, and the in between. And we must tell all those stories. And I'll use business as an example. The average story about a business that we learn is, I started 3 years later. In the first year, I made 1 million. In the second year, I made 8 million. In the third year, I made 15 million. Now I'm a millionaire. Okay. So now I have the Prado. I'm showing you the SUV. I'm showing you the fine house. I'm showing you I wear designer clothes, the salons I go to. But you're not telling the story of the sleepless nights. You're not telling the story of the days when you have 0 shilling or $0 in your pocket. You're not telling the fights you're having with your spouse because you're working too much. You're not telling how you don't see your children because you're up and out before them and back when they're asleep. And the other part you're not telling is all those days that are just boring. Doing those routine tasks. I mean, biashara is routine, business is routine. You wake up in the morning, you open the shop, you serve a customer, you make a sale, you go to a meeting, you're writing a proposal. There are just certain things in there that are routine and are boring. You're calling people every day, following up. Did you pay me? So we're showing, oh, it's easy to make money. Lies. It's lies. Oh, I have made it. Okay, year one, year two, year three. And then you fall off the map and nobody looks for you to remember, are you okay? Because if you're just making and spending every coin you make, of course, at a point, your business will fail. We're not telling the stories of, I had a perfect quote unquote idea, and I actually could have a perfect idea, and then COVID hits, and my perfect idea is no longer viable in the world. So, holistic storytelling tells the whole story, the good, the bad, and the in between, so that we do not create a narrative, which is what is happening to our young people today. We've created a narrative that tells them by 25, you should be a millionaire. If you look at the statistics, it's not true. There are few unicorns, but the average person actually hits financial stability about the age of 40. But we're putting pressure on our children and our young people to be sustainably successful by 25. They don't even have the skill to maintain a job, you know? So holistic storytelling looks at everything from all its dimensions. Remember last time we talked about the multiple facets of a story, which is about talking about what you tell yourself, what you tell your family, what you tell your teams, your customers, and the world. And the thing we are consistently telling is a half-baked story. It is only one side of the story. So if the young people knew that there would be at least 4 or 5 years of just doing basic routine jobs, to do what? To cut their teeth, to gain their skill, and to build their reputation, there would be fewer of them quitting jobs to go and sit at home because my boss was not nice to me. He asked me what I was doing, you know? Or when parents tell their bosses, tell their children, your boss is taking advantage of you, you should be leaving work at 5, that is an untruth because those parents, those very same parents, worked longer hours. So that's what I was talking. I'm a proponent of holistic storytelling because remember, the perspective we're taking of storytelling is that storytelling is more than just a marketing function. It doesn't only sit when I'm doing digital marketing, publicity, sales. Storytelling is how I live my life as an individual. So it's about holistic storytelling is telling all aspects of it with the true tone and voice of myself. That if I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad day. That doesn't mean you go and spill all your messes in the wild. No, no, no. They're those ones you still keep in the closet. But it is important to tell the good, the bad, and the in between for any storyline to be complete.
The good, the bad, the in between. And that will help us to remain intentional with our narratives.
Yes.
How then do you get to incorporate this holistic storytelling in your daily life? Or how would you advise me to use it to, or how can I incorporate it in my daily life, in my daily activities?
That's an interesting one and very important. The one thing you must do is be present. That's the foundation of everything. Most of us are living in, oh, when I get a car, I will. Right now, you're on public transport, all right? Or when I am earning 100,000, I'll be happy. Right now, you're earning 20. So you're living in a miserable space. But to be present is to have a view of the future and who you want to be. It's to know this is what I'm building towards, but this is where I am now. So let's say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step, right? So then I know my end game is to be a billionaire. Right now, I'm a hundredaire, which means I just have hundreds in my pocket. So then break it down to what are the steps that I need to go through to become a billionaire and begin to work them. This thing of fake it till I make it or decree and declare, they don't work. There is a measure of work you must put towards it. So if you apply that same thinking to daily storytelling, the truth is being present in your life allows you to appreciate where you are, to be grateful for life, to understand that you're on a journey, to understand. And I remember when I was told this, I was very, very mad with my brother. He said to me, the process is the destination. So it's not moving from Nairobi to Mombasa. Mombasa is not the destination. The journey between Nairobi and Mombasa are the destination. Because I'll get to Mombasa and I'll rest. But guess what? I'll come back to Nairobi. The bulk of our lives are spent on a journey, on a track. So let's enjoy the process, which then means to incorporate storytelling in everything I do, I must learn a couple of things. And there are 4 things I want to put across. One is reflection. Oh, this is hard, Joe. At the end of the day, stop and ask yourself, what worked? What didn't work? If it worked, why? If it didn't work, why? And then ask yourself, what do I need to stop doing, to do more of, or to literally take it, tear it up, and throw it in the trash? Why is reflection important? Reflection allows you to see the truth of where you are. Remember we said be present. Reflection allows you to find lessons. What have you learned? What will you do more of, do less of? Who will you talk to more? Who will you stop seeing completely? Who do you need to meet? How do you need to go forward? Where is the gap? Where is the growth? What is the disconnection point? And when you are reflecting, reflection now gives you things that you can use in conversations. For instance, if a young person now comes and says, but you're always so successful. I'm like, hey, my friends, we're on business number 5 and 6. 1 to 4 didn't quite work, so I shut them down, and then I can tell them the lessons I learned from the 4 that I shut down. Or I can be honest to say, today's a hard day. Can I speak to you today? No, not today. Today I don't have the bandwidth to do that. Can we reschedule that for another day? It also allows me to know that I have the bandwidth to take a phone call or not. I have the capacity to do that proposal or not, which then allows me to call Joe and say, hey, I know the proposal was due by tomorrow morning. However, can I send it to you tomorrow at 3? So the reflection allows me to guide my conversations. It gives me the examples of what I can use in the conversation. The third thing it does is at the point of reflection, to really get it out of your head, write it down. Pen and paper. So I tell people, always have a notebook with you. Now, I know everybody says, no, we are digital, we use phones. There's something about pen and paper. And maybe I'm old school, but actually, I've actually come back to pen and paper because I left pen and paper. I was like, oh, it's digital. I can do stuff on the go. I always have my phone. And then one day, things were just not making sense in my head. So I took a pen. I like colored pens. I took a pen and I took a piece of paper and I just started mapping it out. I wasn't really writing prose. I was doing words, boxing them, explanations. I drew it out actually. What that helped me do is it helps you take what is here and make sense of it. So that's why writing is important. If you have a tablet that has a stylus, that's okay. There's something about holding a pen, the way I'm holding a pen, and writing like that that makes sense. So to incorporate in daily life, I've said we reflect, and then we use that information from reflection to take it further in conversations. Let me add to conversations. After reflection, I can see the gap. So then I can go and talk to somebody and they can help me unpack it better. And then the third one is writing. But one of the best places to now be able to experience really the power of storytelling and inspiration is going into nature. Now, there are guys who hike every weekend. I'm not those ones. There are people who go away to these exotic vacations. Let that not be an excuse. Do you live in a place that has grass? Okay, many of us live in apartment blocks, so we probably don't have grass. Find a place that has grass. Walk to the grass, take off your shoes, and just stand there and be still.
How long should we stand for?
I'd sometimes do even 3 minutes. If I have time, I'll go and sit on the grass for like 15 minutes. But sometimes you're so busy. It is what I do actually is I get home and I walk on the sand, on the soil, just to the door. In that time, what your feet do, your feet are reminded that this is where I come from. This is solid ground. If you can, and I know in Nairobi we have a lot of parks, I don't know about other places, but let me use Nairobi as an example. There's Arboretum, you can go there. There's Karura, you can go for a walk. You can go to Ololua trails and walk through it. You can go, well, we used to be able to go and sit in City Park, we can't anymore. Sorry, in Uhuru Park, but the City Park. Find a place with grass. If you live in a gated community, I'm sure there's one place with grass. If you live like I do, slightly outside the city, we have birds. In the morning, I open my windows to listen to them. They sound so wonderful. In the evening, when they're going to bed, they're there singing for us bye-bye. We sit and listen to them. If you can, go out and sit in the sun, not the noonday sun, the sun before 10 o'clock in the morning or after 4 p.m. or currently because it's so hot, about 5:36. What nature does for you is that it stabilizes the noise within you. The biggest hindrance to holistic storytelling is the noise in our minds, the noise in our spirits, the noise in our spaces. We're always online, the TV is always on. If we travel by public transport, they're blaring music that you may not enjoy. So to counter the blaring music, you put earphones in. We're always in conversations. So the going into nature is to disconnect, even for just 10 minutes. There is something very powerful that happens that reconnects you to yourself. And then now you can effectively figure out how to use all the information you got from your point of reflection. Remember, holistic storytelling is being able to make sense of the good, the bad, and the in-between. First, for yourself, because you are your first audience. And then for your family, for your team members, for your customers, and for the world at large. I hope that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, and thank you for the nuggets and insights. It means our lives, or if I would take an example of my life, there is a daily narrative about it. There's a narrative for me to write. There's a narrative for me to pen down. There's a narrative to tell myself, and there's a narrative to tell the world. And I have to be intentional about telling the narrative right. But for me to tell the narrative, I need to slow down in a way that I can be able to reflect, piece together the information, put it down, then I am able to speak it out or perform it out or draw it or whatever, shoot, video shoot, photo shoot, whatever you need to call. So thank you so much for those insights. We have to be present. And it all goes about to being intentional, because if we do not document and tell our own stories, they will be told on our behalf in a way that we do not like it, right? So we control our stories, but we have to be intentional about controlling our stories. What would be your one parting shot as we come to the close of the program today?
Be intentional. The thing when we talk about 360-degree brand story, we say when brand stories come alive, one brush stroke at a time. Which means then we're not in a hurry to just paint the wall because everybody's painting the wall purple, yellow, green, red, whatever. The way to understand who you are, what you know, who needs it and where they are, or what problem you solve and how you solve it, is to be intentional to sit down with yourself and then sit down with your brand. Because what we hope you'd be able to do is once you understand the foundations of storytelling for yourself, you can apply the very same principles when you're telling your brand story. So be intentional about time for yourself, time to think, time to strategize. Be intentional to unpack your day every day, to unpack your brand interactions with the customers, with your teams, with the market. Be intentional about everything you do. Intentionality and consistency overshoot, defeat, destroy, outrun brilliance. Intentionality and consistency will get you to where you are. So if right now you cannot understand the story you need to tell, maybe there's too much noise in your ecosystem. So be intentional to dismantle that noise, to say, okay, every day I will sit still for 10 minutes, I will be quiet for 10 minutes and begin to find where I'm at, where I want to go, what I need to do. That is the one thing. You choose a path and intentionally stick to it. Then you will see success.
Thank you very much, Chisubire. Be intentional and be consistent about it. It's your story to tell. To tell the story, it's our duty as your audience to hear the story and listen to the information and inspiration that you have therein. This has been the 360-degree brand story where brands come alive one brushstroke at a time. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us as we break down storytelling to a way that you can apply it in your daily living. Hit the subscribe button and the notification button so that you can be alerted when we are coming online. You can be alerted. Be intentional about improving yourself. And one of the ways of being intentional is subscribe to our channel to get more insights. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good day. Bonsoir, au revoir, kwaheri. Until the next time. This is Joe Mukoko, your host for the 360-degree brand story, bi-weekly conversation about the comprehensive nature of storytelling. Bye.